How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Eric and this is my garage. And in today's video, what I'm going to be doing is finally rebuilding the 300zx calipers that are going to be getting mounted onto my G20. If you guys have been keeping up with my channel, you guys might know that I've been trying to do this for almost a year now. So it's about time for me to get it underway. Now, the reason that I decided to do it is because on my passenger side wheel, I'm having a lot of leaking brake fluid from the caliper. So it's about time, and I should have done this a long time ago. So I'm sorry for taking so long. I've just been procrastinating for some reason. But today is a day that it's gonna get done. I did go ahead and jack up the vehicle so that I can show you guys how bad the brake fluid leak is. So this is the back side of my wheel, and as you guys can see, it's completely covered up in brake fluid. And this is actually gonna end up damaging the wheel because as you guys all know, brake fluid is corrosive. Let me go ahead and show you guys though the source of the leak. So this is the passenger side caliper, and as you guys can see, it's leaking all over the ground, and this is only after a few hours that it's been supported by jack stands. So the leak is pretty bad, and like I said, it did damage the wheel. So the paint started cracking near the spokes. There's nothing that could be done now, but what we can do is rebuild these 300zx calipers so that we can first get a big brake upgrade on my vehicle, and secondly, replace a defective caliper. In front of me, I have some of the tools and equipment that you're gonna need to rebuild your 300zx calipers. We're gonna first start off with the drip pan. I like to use that to clean the calipers before we start anything. You're obviously gonna need the rebuild kit. I like to use an impact to remove the fasteners on the caliper, but if you don't have one, you can use a breaker bar. Along with the breaker bar, you're gonna need some sockets. So right here I have a 14 and a 12mm socket, and you're also gonna need a 10mm wrench to remove the lines on the back of the calipers. And then this piece of wood right here is used inside the caliper so that when you're pushing out the pistons, they don't come flying out. Now let's say you don't have the wood. What you can do is cut some piece of cardboard to size and duct tape it together so that it equals the same thickness as this piece of wood right here. And I'll show you guys why that's important in a few minutes. Just in case you guys were curious, this is the 26mm aluminum caliper that comes off of the 1990 300zx. Now the process that I'm going to show you is going to be the same throughout all the Nissan 300zx's that came out with a 4-piston caliper. These are all the same. They use the same brake pad and everything, so the process is going to be the same. We're going to first start off by removing these clips right here in the back. So go ahead and get a small pair of pliers and go ahead and twist them out. So they're just some small little pins right here that go to the brake pads right here. So we're going to go ahead and remove them out of the way. To do that, what you need to do is push down on the side right here like so. Get something to hit down the pin, just like that. And then with your small pliers, go ahead and remove the sliding pin right here out of the way, just like so. Go ahead and repeat the same process on this side right here. Once you do this, your brake pads will fall off. Remove all of the hardware out of the way, including your brake pads. Now that you have that removed, you should be able to pop this metal retaining clip out of the way. Once you remove your brake pads and the hardware, go ahead and turn the caliper around. And what you want to do is remove the brake line. Now it's important to use line wrenches when you guys are removing these. Unfortunately, I don't have any, so just do this carefully if you're using a regular wrench like how I'm using it right here. So once you break it loose, go ahead and remove it out of the way. You also want to go ahead and remove any bolts that you might have attached to the caliper. These are the original bolts that mount to the knuckle of the vehicle, so I'm just going to remove them. We're going to go ahead and turn the caliper around so that we can take a close look at the pistons. Now when you guys are looking at the pistons right here, you're going to see that there's a rubber boot covering most of the piston up, and that's just used so that there's no debris that scores the wall of the piston itself. You're going to go ahead and get a flathead and remove that clip that you see right there. And then you're also going to go ahead and remove the dust cover boot. Now that you have reached this point, you can go ahead and clean off the caliper. Use some compressed air if you have some. And you can also use like a toothbrush or something to just wipe some of this dirt off of the caliper. The main thing that you want to do right here is not introduce any dust or dirt to the inside parts of the caliper when you open it up. So just go ahead and clean this, take your time, and just be careful around these areas right here. Once you have your caliper nice and clean and ready to go, we're gonna go ahead and start removing the caliper pistons. Now, I've tried using wood, I've tried using cardboard, I tried using a lot of stuff to remove these pistons, and what I found to be the easiest is to just use the brake pads that come with the caliper. So let me go ahead and show you guys how that's gonna look. Basically, what I have in front of me are the 4 brake pads that came off of the calipers. Now, the reason that I say this is probably the fastest and easiest way to do it is because these are perfectly straight, so you're not going to have any issues with the piston maybe coming out sideways. And then you can easily remove one of them to have less thickness in the middle, which will allow you to have both of the pistons come out at the same time. So basically what you want to do is, when you're pushing out the caliper with compressed air, one side is going to come out first. So what you're going to do is remove one of the brake pads and then add a piece of wood or something to hold it in place so that the other side of the piston can come out. So let me go ahead and demonstrate basically how that's going to work. Go ahead and get your compressed air and push out the caliper pistons. As you can see, the pistons on the left hand side right here came out first. So what we're going to do is push the sliding pin out a little bit so that we can remove one brake pad. So we're going to go ahead and slide this back. Now what you're going to do is add something right here so that it stops the caliper pistons from sliding out further. So what you can do is add a piece of wood. Once you have something pushing back on this side, you're going to go ahead and apply some more compressed air, and you're going to see that these pistons are going to come out while these guys stay in place because we have this right here from stopping it going any further. Now you can go ahead and remove the little piece of wood, and we're going to remove another brake pad. Now that we have removed one of the brake pads, we're going to go ahead and add more compressed air, and then we're just going to see which one pops out first. As you saw, the left hand side caliper pistons came out first, so what we're going to do now is remove another brake pad, and what we're going to do is put another piece of wood to hold this side right here steady. This one came out already, but this one is having a hard time, so I put another piece of wood on this side so it can hold it. Alright, so they're all free now. So that's basically how you would remove the caliper pistons. Now, I have to admit, this did take me a while, and after quite a bit of research, I figured out that maybe using the brake pads and some parts of wood to remove the pistons was the fastest and easiest way for me. We're going to go ahead and continue tearing this apart and removing these fasteners that you see in the back of the caliper. So there's 4 bolts right here. These are all going to be 14 millimeters. If you don't have an impact, you can always use a breaker bar to break these fasteners loose. You just have to hold it. Now that you broke these fasteners loose, go ahead and finish removing them. It looks like all of these fasteners are the exact same size. Another important thing to know is that these don't have any Loctite on them, so don't apply any when you're putting them back on the caliper. Now that we have taken out those fasteners, we can go ahead and separate these. And then in here, you're gonna notice that there's two little O-rings that come in our kit. So there's one right here and the other one fell down right here. So these go on the corner right here. The rebuild process is pretty much the same for all the 4 calipers. Now the front two have 2 extra seals that you guys are gonna see right here. Go ahead and get a small prying tool. I'm going to use this small pick right here, and I'm going to be very careful not to damage the cylinder wall right here of the piston. So just go ahead and try to lift this out of here. As you can see, I didn't do any damage to the cylinder wall when I was removing the seal, so you just want to be careful when you're doing this. Now that we have all of the seals out, we're just going to go ahead and clean down these cylinder walls right here of the piston. So we're going to go ahead and start the rebuild process. So right here in front of me, I have the kit. This is for the front, so we're going to go ahead and start putting everything back together. I also did go ahead and change my gloves to some clean gloves. And then I also have a little bit of DOT 3 brake fluid right here, so that when we apply these seals, we add some of that so that it lubricates it. The installation of the seals is going to be the opposite of what we did to remove them. You want to keep in mind though that if you see any dirt or any debris while you're doing this, to go ahead and clean it off. Because if you don't do it, it's going to prematurely wear out these seals and it's going to eventually start leaking. Now, you also want to go ahead and apply some brake fluid to the seals so that they're nicely lubricated. And you also want to do this to the pistons when you're installing them so that they go in there nice and smooth. When you're installing your caliper pistons, you want to make sure that you don't put the piston all the way in there. You want to leave it out a little bit because you won't be able to install the dust cover that goes on the outside. So just leave it out to the point where you're able to see the top part of the piston. Here you see me adding the retaining clips to the dust cover boots. So for these, you just want to make sure that you hold down one side of the clip while you go ahead and go around the seal, and you just want to make sure that it's even on all sides and that it's nice and secure. So now that we have our seals and our retaining clips in, we're gonna go ahead and close up the caliper. So just make sure that these little seals on the corner stay in place. The way we're gonna make sure they stay in place is by rotating that upside down. We're gonna go with this top part over it, and we're going to use the bolts to guide the top part of the caliper on. I wasn't able to find the torque specs for these bolts, so I just hand tightened them down and then ran them down with my impact. But I would recommend for you guys to maybe torque them down to 20 to 25 foot-pounds. This is basically how you would rebuild the front calipers. Now doing the rear calipers is pretty much the same. We're going to go ahead and start off on the rear and remove all the bolts and fasteners that hold down the caliper, along with any lines or any hardware that is in the way. Pretty much the same thing we were doing to the front. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the brake pads, and we're going to go ahead and remove the seals as well so that we can get access to the pistons of the caliper. We're going to go ahead and do this by doing the exact same thing as we did earlier with the compressed air. The method is the same. We're removing the brake pad as the piston gets pushed out, and then there's going to be a point where the pistons are going to be completely out and we're going to be able to remove them. Right here I'm removing the fasteners that split the calipers, and then when you put everything back together, you're going to basically do the same thing that we did to the front. That's pretty much going to be it for this video. If you did find it informative, please make sure to give me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys all on the next one.